Hi there.
How are you?
Good. Where are we at?
We're in Phoenix, Arizona. Sorry, we were just in Chicago yesterday. Okay.
Yeah,
we're in Phoenix, Arizona.
There are days we wake up in bed and we go, where are we at today?
Actually, quite often, especially me.
Today we're going to be sharing a little bit more about our trip in Texas. We spent about a month and a half in Texas.
Lots of people to see. It was great.
So here's what we want to ask. What are we titling this?
Are we speaking the same language?
Well,
we're going to find out. So as we all know, every culture has its own distinct way of communicating. Military has its own language. There's all these acronyms all throughout the military side of things.
Yep.
And there's a language in the RV world, as we've learned. There's things like boondocking. Do you know what that means? That's when you go to like a Walmart parking lot or a Cracker Barrel and you camp in their parking lot.
That's what we're doing right now. We're boondocking right here. We're not plugged into anything, no power, no water. What we realize is there are languages in every single community. Even Ange, we have our shortcuts of language where we will make an eye at each other, like when we're in a crowd and we're going, it's time to leave. We give
each other under the table.
Yeah, so everybody sets up their own language. What we've realized also is we're not always speaking the same language.
Yeah.
We get into days, we've had a few of them on this journey, where we go, are we really speaking the same language? And we go, nope, we're not. My old mentor, Larry Crabb, used to say, he says, you can be doing self-talk or soul talk. Self-talk is all about me. It's that unholy trinity of me, myself, and I. Every conversation is a way to draw attention back to myself, to make my opinions known, to tell my story. That's self-talk. But there's a whole nother way of communicating, what Larry used to call soul talk. You put the needs of the other person before your own. Soul talk says there's something of the Spirit of God that's made me so secure that I don't have to worry about being loved. I don't have to go and grab it from you. What I can do is I can offer what's already inside of me and I can pour it into you. We had an experience of that just a few days ago. We got to visit one of my old mentors, my old professors. In fact, the reason why I went to Multnomah School of the Bible back in the day was because of 1 hour in a class where I was visiting the campus, and I went to a Old Testament prophets class, and on the book of Isaiah, David Needham taught like I'd never seen before. As he opened up the class, it was as if he said, welcome class, and then he had a conversation with God about the text in front of us. The number of lives that have been changed because you love Jesus in front of a classroom. He was soul to soul connecting with God about a story that God had told.
Well, when did you leave home?
That same Spirit of God is in us to be poured into others. And that's what soul talk does. It takes what's alive in me, pours it into the other. So are we speaking the same language?
We're getting there.
We're getting there. If we speak soul to soul, we get so much further than self to self.
We started off in Houston, Texas.
And in Houston, we got to see Peter and Anastasia Remis. Peter was in this alumni director position for a while. Anastasia's sister Jane was with him as well. They gave us our first taste of Texas barbecue. It was so good. Thank you guys. From Houston, we went off to College Station, and who did we see there?
Where we got to see David Cordell. Tremendous time with him and some of the cadets at his gathering in his home. We had Pat Pinnell come. That was just a gift to reconnect with her. Her and her husband Grady have served with Cadence off and on. She did some ministry as a single lady a number of years back, and she also came to Christ in Kaiserslautern, Germany.
While we were in Waco, we also got a big old rock chip right in the front of the RV. Had to stop because we knew the weather was changing. We didn't want it to crack, so we had to make a trip over to Safe Light Auto Glass. They actually found 2 other chips that got repaired. So from Waco, we went on to Dallas, Texas, and we were there for about a month and a half. And who did we see first when we were down in the Dallas area?
C.P. Tarkington, or Tark for short. He and Alma are one of our founding couples of Cadence. We spent 2 hours actually with Tark listening and videoing him telling stories of God's faithfulness over the years.
So here's a few clips of Tark sharing some of his heart for Cadence.
This
picture was made we were actually in a guest house. Sid Henry's on the left and came with the mission, but it was maybe 5 or 8 years after we were there. Jesse came on furlough, and we were going to meet in the China Inland Mission for a reunion of a lot of guys in the center there. And Dick Patty had finished Multnomah. He was ex-Navy just at the last day, so he was a World War II vet, and he went into Multnomah and then went to Westmont, and at the time he was directing a little center at Oxnard, California for the Seabees as a bachelor. Tom Hash is the guy on the front right, and I'm the guy on Jesse's left. And we arrived on a troop ship, both Air Force, both physical, finance, accountants, and we were supposed to handle all the paperwork of those shipments coming in, and it was a nightmare, but everything during the early days of the Korean War was a nightmare. We were meeting at the chapel, which was an old beat-up theater that you'd bring out a little pulpit and hang a cross draped over the front. That was our pulpit for the chapel on Sunday morning. But he preached there, and that's when Tom and I, first time we were the first Sunday we were in the Philippines. First Sunday we heard him preach, we came under conviction, and then for almost 2 years he discipled us.
We did a gathering in that area
So we got
with
to have
Dale
a
and
gathering
Mary.
at their home, the McCombs, and Dale's parents were limited term with Cadence years ago. So it was really cool to hear his stories from his perspective.
That was just an excellent opportunity to see the open home ministry and how effective it is, and the guys and gals that were coming out to it, and then had the privilege to serve on the board.
After that, we went up to the northeast side of Dallas, where we got to see my sister Amanda and her husband Greg, and they took us on a tour of Dallas. Greg has grown up in the Dallas area, so he knows all those little out-of-the-way hidden places. He took us up to Daley Plaza, where JFK was assassinated, and showed us some of the grassy knoll and the other historical sites right there. One of the unique places he took us to was the gravesite of Clyde C. Barrows. If you don't know who that is, he's from the infamous Bonnie and Clyde. The unique thing about that gravesite is whenever you go there, there's always flowers there, but there's also bullets on the gravesite. It's a strange thing.
After that, we got to see Terry and Lori Einfalt. Lori is actually the daughter of Tom and Dottie Ash, who are also the founding couple of Cadence. They do tremendous work. She loves to focus on widows as part of her ministry and her grandkids. She does intentional grandparenting, which I love.
Yes, and they gave us a little bit of a snippet of what Cadence meant to them. So here's a little bit of their story.
Well, my name is Lori Hash Einfalt. Mom and Dad were one of the 4 original founders of Cadence, so I had the incredible privilege of growing up in Cadence. Most of our time was spent in the Philippines. We were also in Panama. And when Terry and I got married, we were with Cadence for 10 years. He was the accountant for Malachi and then Europe Houses. So we were 10 years, 3 years in Germany, and then 7 years in the home office. So Cadence is in our blood. The military are our people, and we love them dearly and are so glad that the story continues with Cadence.
So we actually met with Terry and Lori in what's called the Hope Center. It's a facility that's set up for Christian nonprofits. And while we were sitting there meeting with Lori, along comes Hal Habecker, who I'd already planned to see. But Hal and I go back to a trip down to Peru, and he leads a ministry called Finishing Well. What a great time to be with he and his wife Vicky, get a short time of visit with them. What he means by finishing well is the same vision we have for alumni. We hope that there'll be many, many more conversations about what it means to finish well. From there, we flew.
To Asheville, North Carolina.
What were we there for?
We went to the Larger Story Summit to honor Dr. Larry Crabb, who passed away just over a year ago. Duncan was able to do some seminar teaching, and he led us in a time of communion at the end of the time, which was so powerful. I would say it was up there ranking one of my favorite communion times ever.
Here's my point. Unless Kep made a way for me, I would have had no right to call Larry a few days before he passed. That's family time. Because Kep made a way for me, I was invited to enjoy family privileges. You are about to enter into family privileges because a son has made a way to a father.
We came back from Asheville and we went up to the northwest corner of Dallas where we were in Flower Mound, and who did we see there?
Albert and Denise Jarrell hosted our gathering, and we had a tremendous time with a number of their friends that attended, as well as a gal named Lil Kohler. I love this story, one of my favorites on this whole trip. Long story short, she had seen us as she was driving home that day as we were heading to the campground, and God crossed our paths, you guys, in such a special way.
So I was pulling up to my intersection. I live in the Colony, and there was this their RV was in front of me, and I thought, oh, Cadence, that's interesting. How many people would have that? And then I started reading what was on their RV. I'm like, wait a minute, that says ministry to the military. Oh my goodness. They've got to be related to Dave and Joyce.
Yeah.
Anyway, I followed them. So I went home and quickly changed into my walking clothes, and I was walking back, and I memorized their car that they were towing. And so I saw it coming my way, and I waved at them. And they rolled down their windows. Are you from Cadence? And they're like, yes. And I said, well, I'm friends with Dave and Joyce. So
We also got to see Ben and Ashley Honeycutt and their kids. Boy, have they grown up. We saw them a few years ago when they were traveling around on their own RV tour. Ben gave me this cool looking Texas hat. Thank you, Ben. From Flower Mound, we drove up over to Graham, Texas. Yes, and who do we see there?
Wanda Knox. She goes back to my Kaiserslautern days when I was a teenager in Germany. Wanda's a widow now. We miss her hubby so much, but we just felt so loved by you, Wanda. Thank you. I love your Cadence story. Thanks for sharing your heart.
From there, we flew home for spring break. We wanted to see our daughter. You saw the video where she broke a tooth.
Broke a tooth, so quick update. On this trip back for spring break, I went in to have that tooth or the hole evaluated to make sure it was healing correctly, and it was. But as we talked, we discovered that on the other side of my mouth where I have 2 crowns, the crowns had gone bad. So they put some special medicine in there and said you have to come back in a month.
Here's the cool part of the story is as they're looking at it, they go, there's an infection in there. And we've started finally putting the puzzle pieces together. The infection from her bad root canal was causing her ear problems, the ear infection she was getting.
If the tooth hadn't broken, I wouldn't have gone in and we wouldn't have discovered the ear infection.
So we were back home, got our first taste of snow again. Woo, we had missed it. We've been in the sun a lot. We flew back to Texas.
Yep.
Killeen, Texas, and what's there?
That's where we have our Soldiers Hospitality House at Fort Hood. And Ben and Melody Blocher are the house directors there, along with a whole crew of Cadence people. Ken and Judy Wooten, they are the ones that actually purchased the property, raised the money to build the home years ago, and it's just a phenomenal house. It was our first time to that facility.
Mark and Mary Fisher, Jason and Cindy Walden,
And Sharon Hall.
Sharon Hall, and then Ben and Doris Hyde.
Yes.
There's a big crew down there.
Wonderful team.
We did a large gathering. It was actually our largest gathering so far. 86 people at the gathering with 12 alumni. And we had some special guests for that. Who flew in for
So David and Joyce Schroeder and Jonathan, their son, and also Dave Hutchings. was fun to have you all.
They were there and they helped share in the gathering that was together. They helped coin. Love hearing all the Air Force. Can you hear the Air Force jets going above us? Luke Air Force Base is right down the street from us.
We're live with sound.
Yeah. Dave and Joyce and David Hutchings, they went down to San Antonio with us and were joined by Brian Klager and Danny Perez.
Yep.
And what did we do down there?
We attended the FCMM conference, which stands for Fellowship of Christian Military Ministries. Here we go again, speaking another language, right?
Yep.
Phenomenal time. I think there was about 100 people or so from all different military ministries coming together just to share ideas, to encourage one another, to pray for each other. It was a great time of fellowship.
We stayed in San Antonio after the FCMM conference.
Yep.
And then we went over to Fellowship Bible Church where we did 2 activities. What were those?
We had a gathering on Saturday with Stephanie and Dave Williams as our host couple, along with Sharon Hall. Stephanie and Sharon are best friends, and they go all the way back to when they were single together, serving the single women with Cadence International. Then on Sunday morning, they gave us the whole service. Thank you to the pastor there. It was phenomenal. So Stephanie welcomed them, and then Sharon shared and Duncan shared, and it was just really neat to see how that body came around Sharon.
We also got to see one of our board members.
Yes, Dan and Cindy Zuli. Cindy is on our board currently, and so special to have them present at that gathering.
Got to have a special meal with them afterwards.
Yes.
And
they really loved us well and built into us and prayed for us. So thank you.
We also got to see Mondo and Dominique.
And her mom Lisa. Had a special time. Again, we had seen them at the Soldiers Hospitality House, but then they came to our gathering there at the Fellowship Bible Church. So we got some added bonus time.
And they have a pet squirrel, which became really a fun part of our conversation.
Yeah.
But we had deep heart connection with them. It moved us to see the impact that Cadence is having. You also met with Millie.
Yes, oh, sweet Millie. Millie Brisno, she is a widow. Her husband died back in 2005, and she has such a heart for military.
After the church service, we got one more meeting with formerly Dee Dee Kremenak, now Dee Dee and Tom Longway.
Dee Dee was part of our Malachi singing team, the very last one that we actually, Duncan and I together got to lead back in 1991. So we hadn't seen her since then. Oh, to connect and hear their stories about their kids and just life and their ministry that they do. Very encouraging.
30 years later, and it just was like we picked right back up. It was just one of those moments where we were speaking the same language, soul to soul. It was really encouraging. Our final stop out of Texas, Lubbock, Texas.
Where we saw Lindsay Hyde. She's one of our daughter, Michaela, best friends from growing up years, and she's in college there, so we stopped and took her out for ice cream.
So, are we speaking the same language? Well, sometimes we are. Yeah, sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're stuck in our own self-talk. Other times, those sweet moments when we're reaching into the other person's soul, pouring what's most true about us, what's most true about Jesus in us, into the other. Those are those moments that you just we've had moments time after time after time with people where those become some of the richest memories that we're going to have going out of this trip.
We've talked in the past about power of proximity. I think this last chunk for me has been the power of presence. What does it mean to really be present in each other's lives in our marriage as we sit across the coffee table from our friend or a military person at your hospitality house? Wherever we are, we all have that opportunity to give ourselves in the moment and not think about ourselves, but to truly listen.
So next month we will be covering New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, and California. Here we come. Till then, bye for now.
For now, we love you.
We don't know how to say goodbye.
We love you.
Bye for now.
Bye.